Ooh, what's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way. So I did a thing. Do you ever just get possessed by an idea? It's a very rare circumstance for me to be very, driven by the muses. But the other day, I was having a conversation, and midway through, I had an idea that I suddenly needed to get down. I love storytelling, but I tend to get very long form about it, and that's hard to make regularly, especially with art. So I was excited when I thought I could get a cool story out while not taking forever on it. That being said, this did still take about 10 hours, not including breaks or sleep, because I started this at night and got less than halfway through before coming back to it the next day, working on it again. Overall, like I said, about 10 hours total of work. And initially, I just sketched out all of the thumbnails for this concept on one page. It's just something that I tend to do. I think I get overwhelmed by the prospect of a lot of drawings just sitting there in different files, so I just drew them all together and put them on their own respective pages when I got to them. You might notice that the initial sketching process wasn't a part of that, and that's because I had initially intended to do this process, quote-unquote, myself, just to get it out, I guess, really, but I figured, hey, this is gonna take a while, might as well record some progress. I mean, this kind of thing is like a feat, and I do kind of like talking about the process of doing things now, talking about, I guess, where my mindset was when I was drawing a lot of things, right? So, my thoughts were initially that maybe this could be some kind of zine, which is a weird word, by the way. I read it a lot more before, ever hearing it, and I never really put together the fact that it was the other half of magazine, so I always pronounced it Zine in my head when I first read it until somebody else pronounced it. So yeah, all of the pages or panels are separate because of that, and they're the same size. I may try to print this later, but that feels like it's gonna be its own whole thing. I still need to figure out how to do the whole booklet printing thing on my own computer, and I don't want to get Acrobat. I don't! It has certainly been a minute since I've tried to draw anything close to this. For a good while, in my teens, during my DeviantArt days, I did actually attempt to draw the longest-running story taking residence in my head, Thrakos, and I made a good few pages. I think I even got up to 100, but they weren't really good. I made them, though. It was actually back then when I had Krita, as opposed to CSP, and they hadn't updated their text engine yet, so I lettered my own pages. That comic is 80% responsible for my handwriting being as legible as it is, I swear. It burnt me out, forever, though. So, I mean, maybe this was actually my brain's way of saying, okay, you can make visual stories again. Just be nice this time. I'm giving you back comic-making privileges. Which, yeah, but if you want to read this, it is actually up on all of my socials. I put it up before, so this is sort of just like a post video, which isn't something that I usually do. I usually make stuff for the channel more so, it seems. So this is a little different than my usual processes. I just figured I'd record it and talk about it. But yeah, I'll leave a link to it to somewhere, maybe in the description or in a pinned comment or both. I am going to get into the story, so here's your chance to avoid spoilers for a literal 12-page wordless story. I'll basically be narrating it, though. So, this black-faced lamb, I'll call them Kindred for simplicity because they are the protagonists and I have no other names for them, is introduced to a surrogate family with 2 other lambs a bit older than them. Kindred quickly shoots up past their siblings, still looking and acting decidedly lamb-like. They kind of annoy the maturing siblings with this and generally feel cast out from the rest of the herd, with their only real connections outright ignoring them. Then, one night, as they're resting just outside of the pasture, a sickly, ravenous wolf sneaks in. Later in the night, the shepherd comes to find Kindred stooped over the dead wolf covered in blood. Everyone is relieved that Kindred is both unharmed and seems to have saved them. In the reflection, as they turn away toward their now accepting herd, and their place in the world being finally solidified, you see them as they truly are, in fact, which is a guardian dog. They saw themselves as a lamb. Now, this was something that I had hinted to throughout the story, that I was trying my best to keep hinting to. Mainly, like, Kindred's playful nature, and the most, like, glaring fact behind it being their eyes. So, like, not only the fact that they were yellow, which is kind of an odd color for a herd animal, but they're circular. So you look that their pupils are actually circles, while their siblings' eyes are rectangular, like a sheep's are supposed to be. I also kind of thought that, like, the collar shape of their bell, it being higher up on their neck and not hanging down, was kind of a hint. And I figured that any dog would kind of see itself as a baby for a prolonged period of time. Which, yes, I based the character, both the sheep actually and the dog that you see at the very end of the comic, off of an Anatolian shepherd, which are shown to, at least historically, have worn those badass spike collars. Also, they get big. I suppose it makes sense that a guardian dog would have to be, but these puppers are just massive. No real story connections to that. I just like drawing big old dogs. They're pretty, too. I got some nice reference patterns for lambs that kind of emulated that, so that's where the whole, like, black-faced, like, lamb version of Kindred came into play there. Also to differentiate them from the rest of the sheep beside their size, obviously. Is it the most original story? I'm sure that I've seen similar before, but I wanted to do my own take on it. Mistaken identity sort of stories do kind of hit close to home for me. I feel like that sense of displacement is pretty common among other people, but I've felt it myself a lot in the past. So wanting to find an identity outside of what's expected of me and to contribute in my own way, that's a big dream of mine. It's like I still want to be a part of something, but I feel like that there's something different that I could be doing. Also, overall, this is not intended to be anti-wolf, okay? I love wolves. I don't want to demonize them, but the wolf that is in this picture, that is in this piece, it's alone, it's sickly, it's trying to get a quick meal. It's similar enough to Kindred to have the same eye color, even, but they don't really see it that way. It's just kind of a vague, monstrous threat at the moment. Maybe the wolf could kind of represent loneliness, really, or that, like, sequestering or isolation. That's the word that I'm looking for, like, giving into that isolation, because it is something that Kindred possibly could become, but at the same time, a lone wolf tends to become a dead one. And I didn't really intend for it to be all that deep or symbolic, but that's kind of out of my hands now. I mean, God, even I'm analyzing my own silent comic for subtext. I guess, though, when I do it, it could be canon. So, what's your interpretation of that matter? Let me know in the comments. I'm actually quite interested to see if anybody else has, like, a different story in mind. I feel like these wordless stories do invoke a little bit of, like, symbology that is maybe beyond what their initial intention would be, but I feel like a lot of interpretations are valid. I mean, it's art, you know? That's how it works. But yeah, like the video if you like these kind of breakdowns for my art or story-based things. Subscribe if you want to see more in the future, along with some fun art challenges. I'm not always able to crack out a whole 12-page comic in 10 hours, but I do like making characters and stories out of the challenges that I give myself. Join my flock of weird, multicolored sheep. I am your sheepdog. This is a threat. At that, though, I hope that you check out the comic if you can, and I'll see y'all next time.